All right. All right. Thanks everybody for joining us. This is awesome to see about 40 people out here already. I'm sure we'll have some more coming on in. Um, I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Matt Searsweeney. I am the climate campaign representative for the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. Um, It means I am on staff and I'm working on our uh, clean energy and building electrification related issues. And what we're going to be talking about tonight is the intersection of both of those issues. So, welcome everybody. We're so excited to have everyone here um, to talk a little bit about protecting clean energy and energy efficiency investments in Maryland, in particular by safeguarding the Strategic Energy Investment Fund. Um, the SEIF, as it's known, you'll hear a lot about tonight. It's something that I think most folks don't know a whole ton about, um, but we should because it's really important to powering our clean energy and energy efficiency goals in Maryland. So I'm from Sierra Club, as I said. We're putting on this presentation together with Maryland League of Conservation Voters, Interfaith Power and Light, and Action in Montgomery. You'll be hearing from all of us tonight. But to start us off, I'll give you just a quick note about the Sierra Club Maryland chapter. So Sierra Club's Maryland chapter is composed of about 70,000 members and supporters across the state working together to get people outdoors, to collectively advocate for a healthier environment at the local and state level. Our work ranges from advocacy on clean transportation to zero waste to natural places to the reason we're here tonight, which is to talk about clean energy. So Leslie, when you're ready, let's go to the next slide. All right. So
Wow.
the state of Maryland right now is facing a few intersecting crises. We have, on the one hand, an energy affordability crisis, and on the other hand, a climate crisis. Energy affordability is something that the energy affordability crisis is something that I'm sure everyone here has uh, is starting to experience. For the past couple of years, we've seen energy bills spiking, and we know that the impacts of this are particularly impacting our lowest income neighbors. And just to illustrate this, I wanted to highlight a couple facts about where these impacts are most felt. So, a pretty astonishing 450,000 Maryland families qualify for energy assistance, and 167,000 of those families live with a crushing energy burden. That means spending at least 25% of their income on their energy bills. So clearly, this is completely untenable, and it's a huge issue that our state is facing right now, and that the whole country is facing, right? Along with that issue, we also have another issue that the folks on this call are likely very familiar with is the climate crisis. And so Maryland has quite ambitious climate goals, and is already really feeling the impacts of climate change. Those impacts in Maryland, especially, we know are coastal flooding and erosion, saltwater intrusion in Chesapeake Bay communities, especially. We've got extreme precipitation events, intensified droughts, so much more. While we have these really significant impacts of climate change, Maryland also has these really excellent and ambitious climate goals. Um, but we need to figure out how to actually achieve these goals. And unfortunately, as we all know, federal support for those goals is drying up. However, there is a really important source of funding to advance these goals in Maryland. And now I'm going to pass it to Josh to talk about that fund. So go ahead to the next slide, Leslie.
Thanks a lot. Good evening, everyone. I'm Josh Tolkien. I'm the director of the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club and appreciate the chance to share with all of you. About 20 years ago, Maryland created a Strategic Energy Investment Fund, which many of us refer to as SEIF. Some people say SEIF. Yeah, you can do what you want, but I say SEIF. It's easier. This fund comes from two sources. One of those is a program called the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, which taxes polluting power plants, and the other source is the penalty payments that utilities pay if they fail to purchase the amount of clean energy that the state has told them to. So the idea is that in both of these cases, we want to use this funding to actually support those very goals: grow clean energy, improve energy efficiency, and the whole program has a very specific focus on supporting low-income ratepayers and really prioritizing that frame. Um, the programs largely go to the Maryland Energy Administration, and that leads to grants for community and rooftop solar, decarbonizing our public schools, residential and commercial building energy efficiency. The programs provide grants to governments, to nonprofits, and to businesses that really have been a key part of helping to drive Maryland's progress on clean energy and energy efficiency. Next slide, please. Um, because the SEIF is funded by these different sources, the amount of money in the fund can go up and down in different years. Maryland has really ambitious climate goals, and the utilities have really been doing a bad job of achieving those clean energy goals the last couple of years. So something called alternative compliance payments, which is a little bit like a penalty that you pay instead of purchasing clean energy. Our clean energy goals have gone up, and the utilities have not been purchasing enough, so they've been paying a lot of money into alternative compliance payments. And then similarly, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative has become more ambitious, meaning that the power companies need to pay more in order for their right to pollute. In other words, as you can see, between 2023 and 2024, the amount of money in this fund almost doubled. But let's be clear, what this means is that there is more of a need to spend that money to achieve Maryland goals. So the money is going up, not because we've been doing better, but because the companies that are supposed to have not been purchasing clean energy. And that means that the state should be spending even more money trying to drive these important developments. Because the other context is what's really at stake here are the communities that are living near coal and gas-fired power plants, the communities that have been suffering from the burden of pollution for so long. And if we don't grow our clean energy, it will be more difficult to transition off the dirty energy. Next slide, please. Here's the problem. Where we saw a great opportunity to scale up our clean energy programs, at the same time, Maryland was facing some pretty difficult budget years. However, the SEIF is called what's a special use fund. It means the legislature said, we want this to be in a special lockbox and only used for these purposes. Unfortunately, in the last 2 years, more than 500 million was pulled out of the SEIF to pay for general fund programs, and then last year to pay for a rebate program that went to everybody in Maryland, including millionaires, giving them a small rebate on their electric bill. If we thought this was a good program, we would have done it many, many years ago, but we know that investing in energy efficiency is much more effective. So what we're faced this year is that the proposed budget would divert another $400 million from this fund. And at the same time, we're hearing from legislators that there isn't enough money to fund these critical climate programs: environment, solar, clean energy, efficiency, school buses. So we are standing up and saying, these are the ways to help Maryland stay strong, stay healthy, and to help Maryland residents save money for a long time to come. And so while it is challenging and uncomfortable in tough budget times, we are standing up and defending that these are good investments, and we should keep the investments focused on clean energy and energy efficiency, not just to balance out the budget. And with that, I believe I am passing that back to Matt.
That's right. So we've now understood what this fund we now understand what this fund is, why it's important, and also the threats that it's facing. And now we want to transition into talking about, so what exactly can we do about this? What is this campaign trying to accomplish? Next slide, Leslie. So our defense for the Strategic Energy Investment Fund comes in the form of a two-part strategy. Step one is to deal with the immediate issue in this budget that is being decided this legislative session over the next 2.5 months. Um, we need to do everything we can to ensure that this money is not diverted and is instead used for its intended purposes. Like Josh was pointing out, um, making up for the fact that utility companies are providing all of these alternative compliance payments because they are not meeting their renewable energy goals. So step one is protecting SEIF funds in the current FY27 budget. And then step two um, is going to be protecting the SEIF funds in future years through legislation. Next slide. And I'll pass to Chris to talk a little bit about what we're trying to do in this year's budget. Hey, Chris, if you're talking, you're muted.
Um, Welcome everyone. We have developed a series of pilot projects um, that can use the fiscal 27 money. They're based on a study that we did, Sierra Club, the Center for Progressive Reform, and RMI did last year. And the three pilot projects that I'm going to discuss in depth here are meet the following criteria. They focus on low-income households. They deliver long-term energy and bill savings at a time when many are finding their bills unaffordable. They have the potential to help transform uh, the market for electrification and energy efficiency by lowering the upfront costs. They decrease peak electric loads, so a significant portion of them are focused on transitioning from electric resistance heat and hot water heat to heat pumps. They decrease peak electric loads, improve health, and they need to be proven with pilot projects, which is what we'll talk about. The first one is window heat pumps. You put a window heat pump looks like an air conditioner that sits on both sides of the window, typically in a multifamily property. In those types of properties, installing a heat pump can sometimes be difficult because of central heating and space constraints. And window heat pumps solve that problem. They cost about 40% less than conventional heat pumps. And they plug into, and the way that they save, part of the way they save the money is because they just plug into a regular outlet instead of requiring special electrical work. And they're cold climate heat pumps, so they operate at low temperatures. New York City Public Housing is installing 30,000, Boston over 100, and California is proposing incentives for them. And they'll save about 55% on energy and electric bills for heating. They pay back the incremental investment in 6 years. The second one is heat pump water heaters. So about 57 to 60% of households have electric tanked water heaters that are electric resistance. They're not very efficient. And heat pump water heaters can save 75% of the energy bill. And the approximate additional cost of putting one in is about $1,000 over electric resistance for the heat pump over electric resistance. And they pay back in only 3 years. The third program is called Heat Pump First. Consensus for a long time has been that houses need to be weatherized when installing heat pumps. But if a heat pump is installed first, there may be a relatively small amount of energy that remains to be saved. And we're proposing a side-by-side experiment with half the homes receiving weatherization and half not, and all receiving heat pumps. The houses chosen would be projected to have relatively low bills once the heat pumps are installed. And the experiment would measure temperature, comfort, and energy use differences. If it's successful, it could save $3,000 to $6,000 per home in getting heat pumps in. Collectively, these experiments could save $8 million a year in energy bills and 72,000 megawatts of electricity. So these would all be run through MEA's Residential Energy Equity Program. In addition to these three programs, we're proposing $20 million to support replacing 100 diesel-powered school buses with electric school buses. This will prevent children from breathing the particulates and nitrous oxides that come from diesel school buses. And we had been proposing an additional $20 million for solar, but the governor's budget actually significantly exceeds that. And so now, so again, to summarize, there's an $8 million savings here, and a huge amount of electric savings in addition to some peak load savings. Now I'd like to pass it over to Marilla Goldsmith from AIM to talk about induction stoves.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you. It's an honor to be here tonight. So I'm a volunteer with the climate action team of my congregation, which is Adat Shalom Reconstructionist Congregation in Bethesda. And our congregation is part of a cohort of Jewish congregations participating in Sea Change, which is the Racial Equity Roundtable. There's 10, did I say 10? 10 of our 10 Jewish congregations that are part of this. And we are part, in turn, of Action in Montgomery, which is a broad-based community power organization that's nonpartisan, multi-faith, multiracial, and dedicated to making our county and state a better place to live. And as Action in Montgomery, we strongly support using SEIF for the purposes for which it was intended, reducing carbon emissions, and doing that with an eye to equity. So that's why we're supporting program to allow people to purchase induction stoves and to replace their horrible gas stoves. I want to show, here we have some pictures. These are pictures that were taken. The one on the right is in my kitchen. So this is Adama, who's a staff person with AIM, and she came to my house to test my kitchen to see what kind of emissions were coming from my stove. And what we found was that the level of nitrogen dioxide was at what's called a very unhealthy level. It was off the charts, basically. Apparently, unhealthy is over 200 parts per billion. And in my kitchen, running the stove for just 15 minutes, the level went up to 320 parts per billion. We went up to my neighbor's apartment. I live in an apartment building right into downtown Bethesda. And we went up to my neighbor's apartment my neighbor's apartment, and you can see that we looked in her closet. It turns out that her gas water heater is in the closet inside her apartment. I'm fortunate. Mine is on the balcony, but hers is in the closet. And when we opened the door there, we saw that a gas pipeline for the entire line of apartments went right through her building. You can see that there. And there were gas leaks. That's a separate monitor that was used to find the gas leaks. And there were gas leaks in that closet, and also from the gas fireplace that she has there. And there were so many gas leaks that Adama recommended that she just stop the gas, turn off the gas to the fireplace, and call the gas company. And in fact, when the gas company came, they said it was an emergency. Basically, using these kind of things right in our kitchen where so many people spend so much time is just terribly dangerous. We know that for older buildings in Montgomery County, often the vents are clogged with years of grease and they do not work. And windows in apartment buildings can only be opened a few inches as a safety measure to prevent falls, all of which means that there's very little circulation inside older buildings in Montgomery County. Our AIM tenant leaders have tested hundreds of kitchens similar to mine for nitrogen dioxide, and that is caused by the burning of the gas of methane in our kitchens. And they consistently have measured levels that are higher than what EPA recommends for indoor air quality, just like they found in my kitchen. And I always explain that I live in a luxury apartment building. What the people from AIM explained to me is that it doesn't matter whose house you go to. It could be the fanciest house in Montgomery County, or it could be a low-income apartment. They all have gas, the level of nitrogen dioxide that's occurring from the burning of gas is always at a dangerous level. So basically, we're advocating for funding for these induction stoves, and I hope by sharing my own personal experience, you've gotten a bit of a sense of why AIM is so concerned about replacing gas stoves with induction stoves. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Maddie Smith from Interfaith Power and Light, who can talk more about the policy proposal.
Hi, everyone. It's really good to be here with you tonight. I'm Maddie. My pronouns are they, them. I am the Clean Energy Shepherd at Interfaith Power and Light. And, one of the reasons why we wanted to, Sierra Club came to AIM and IPL and said, if you could do anything, what would you want to do? And we said induction stoves because there are so many tenant leaders, like Mirla mentioned, that are advocating for induction stoves and want to get these dangerous gas burning stoves out of their homes. What we're proposing as part of this SEIF initiative is to put $5 million towards an induction stove pilot, and this would be a program that would be run through the Maryland Energy Administration, a grant program that would allow multifamily buildings to be able to replace their stoves. One challenge when you live in a multifamily building like I do is that you can't just, replace your appliances the same way that you can if you own your unit. One thing that we've discovered in doing all of this work together and the tenants advocating for, wanting to get rid of their gas stoves and wanting induction stoves is that there's no really current pot of money that actually funds this work. So this is a new thing. This is a gap that's been identified that's needed. And so I think that really is why we're excited about this. And I think I will leave it there and, we'll be excited to talk more about induction stoves as this goes on. And
Thanks.
I'll hand it back to Matt.
All right. And I think, Leslie, you can go to the next slide. And let's go over to Kristen.
Good evening, everybody. I am so delighted to be here with my friends and partners to talk about the Strategic Energy Investment Fund and what we can do to protect and to safeguard the SEIF, which is so important. And we talked about this as a two-pronged plan. What our friends have just been discussing are the proposals for this year's fiscal year. So what the General Assembly is considering right now is fiscal year 2027. What we're looking at additionally, though, is what comes next. We don't want this to be something that we have to fight over every single year, year after year. So Maryland LCB has been working with our partners to put together a bill that will be sponsored by Delegate Dana Stein, longtime climate champion, to mandate a minimum amount of money that will be spent on climate programs from the SEIF for fiscal years 2028 to 2032. We chose the mandated minimum number of $365 million because that's the money that our best estimate is that they spent this year, fiscal year 2026. And that is what we're saying is the minimum. We know they can spend that amount of money because they've done it. We want them to spend, of course, much, much more. With the ballooning amount of money in the SEIF, there's more opportunity to do more work, more good work. And we want that money to be spent in the ways that are best possible. And we want that to be done for the next 4 years. We might want to go beyond that if we look like the same kind of large payments of alternative climate payments will be going into the SEIF in the years to come. But we know that we'll be seeing that kind of amount of money for at least the next 4 or 5 years. So we're looking at, again, a mandated minimum budget to take the projects that were just described and move it forward for the next 5. So this would be a 5-year project, looking at both fiscal year 2027 and then the next 4 years after that. And I really wanted to, so I don't have big numbers. I don't have anything. What I really wanted to draw attention to, as some of our partners have been doing, is these are about real people. These sometimes big energy projects feel very distant. They feel very there's their technology and their numbers are so big. But what I really want to make sure that we understand and that we're able to carry forward is this affects all of our lives. When we talk about the SEIF, we're talking about real money that's going to energy assistance to help real people in real communities be able to pay their bills. And that's incredibly important. That's been helping hundreds of thousands of, at least 100,000 Marylanders this year were received money from energy assistance. When energy bills are skyrocketing, that's incredibly important. When we're talking about electric school buses, we're talking about the health of children, and we're talking about the health of the children and the bus drivers that are often come from the most disadvantaged, the already overburdened communities whose asthma rates are already explosively high. We want to make sure that they have a safe transportation to school through electric school buses. We want our schools to be electrified and net zero so that when they get to the schools, they're living in a safe, clean air building that is contributing to our climate solutions. When we want to have EV infrastructure so that we all can get out of our diesel and gas powered cars and move to electric vehicles. And we need the infrastructure to do that. That comes out of the SEIF. We want to be able to have clean energy. We want to use community solar, where we can drive and look at and wave at our community, our solar farms that we are getting our energy from. That comes from the SEIF. Workforce development, the EARN program, is real jobs for real Marylanders doing real work in advancing the clean energy economy. There's grid resilience through the Resilient Maryland Act, the Resilient Maryland program, that makes sure that our grid is stable and has grid hubs, energy hubs to protect our grid. We want to make sure that our houses are safe, which gives us, and at most energy efficient, energy audit money comes from the SEIF. These are real people projects. These are real people programs, and these are and that directly help the health and affordability of all Marylanders. So we look for your support for both the fiscal year 2027 budget as well as Delegate Dana Stein's bill to mandate the minimum amount of money from the SEIF for the next 4 years. And I'll turn it back over to Matt. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Kristen, and thank you to all our presenters tonight. So, Leslie, you can move us to our final couple slides. So just to sum this all up, SEIF is the fund that is powering Maryland's clean energy future, and we need to keep it that way. So we hope that you'll join us in defending and expanding these crucial investments in clean, affordable energy, in all of the things that Kristen just talked about for years to come. Leslie, you can move us to our final slide. Not our final slide. We've got more to come, but thank you all so much for being here tonight. Thank you to so much to our presenters from League of Conservation Voters, AIM, IPL. We appreciate so much the voices that you're bringing to this conversation. So we'll now take a couple minutes to take questions, but then stay tuned because we've got a couple more slides to talk about taking action. But I'll hand it over to Leslie.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone. I'm Leslie Paredes. I'm the Communications Associate for the Maryland chapter of the Sierra Club. I am going to be helping moderate the Q&A portion of our section. And like Matt said, please stay for a couple minutes until the end of the presentation. We have our take action slides coming up, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to take some questions from the audience. There should be a little raise your hand button at the bottom of your Zoom tab, and I will go by the order that it appears on my screen. And then our presenters will be able to jump in and answer your questions. So I'm going to stop my screen share and we'll start taking questions. You can also raise your hand and I will I will call on you.
Chris has done a good job. Props to Chris for taking on some questions that appeared in the chat.
Joanne?
I just wanted to say I had friends that moved in actually near Minneapolis who moved into a house that had an induction stove. And for maybe several weeks, they only had one pot that they could use because you can only use certain pots and pans on induction stoves. So I was wondering if that program is going to include money to replace the pots and pans that you cook with. Because it can get, it can get up to $80 just for that.